Yeah, I believe it is being recorded right now. All right, so we have a team of 4 members, and we're going to be presenting on the companies we've chosen. My name is Noor Nabi, and the group members we have Cyrus, Minahil, and Natasha. So I'm going to start off with my company, which is called Pfizer. It's a pharmaceutical corporation, and Pfizer was Pfizer was founded in the year 1849, and its headquarters are located in New York in Midtown Manhattan. Now, along with the development and manufacturing medicines, they also have a few blockbuster drugs, which generate more than $1 billion in annual revenues. Now, the list includes prescription medications and over-the-counter drugs as well. The four main drugs, which are known as blockbuster drugs, are Advil, Lyrica, Zoloft, and Viagra. Other than that, Pfizer successfully operates in 180 countries. Now, moving to the vision and mission of Pfizer. The vision is basically it incorporates two key elements. First one is development, where Pfizer is primarily involved in the production of pharmaceuticals and medical devices, along with being the first one to combine the most wanted drug products. And this actually remains the corporation's top priority, while the second key element is the advantages to the patients. Now, at the same time, the company reaffirmed its commitment to providing items that directly benefit patients. Along these lines, Pfizer also reveals that its primary concern is for the patients, with everything else coming second in line. When we move to the mission statement, that I believe is it includes another two key elements, with the first one being streamlining of medical services, where Pfizer emphasizes its commitment to making products that meet existing issues even more effectively. And in the first section, and despite having logical challenges of getting such products to its patients, the company has demonstrated truthfulness to this segment through its innovative medications. The second key element is improving lives and networks. Now, it ties to the first section by describing how the company's therapeutic advances increase people's personal well being by restoring their health. Now, moving on to the competitors, it has a couple of competitors such as GlaxoSmithKline, Merck & Co., Bristol Myers, Johnson & Johnson, Eli Lilly, and company. I also conducted a SWOT analysis where the strengths of Pfizer, I found them to be market leadership, which Pfizer being the 49th largest public company in the world, and it has the second largest pharmaceutical sales in the year of 2020. It also generates annual revenues of around $50 billion and also has a market cap of 194 billion as of Feb 2021. The second strength is focus on R&D and innovation. Now, it's all about research and development. Pfizer invests almost around $8 billion in research and development every year, which I believe is a significant amount. And along with producing the COVID-19 vaccine, the corporation also focuses on the manufacture of vaccines and drugs for a variety of medical conditions, such as oncology, cardiology, and neurology. Another strength is the strong brand image, because Pfizer started off as a fine chemical business in 1849 when two German American entrepreneurs founded the company. Now, with more than 170 years of experience under its belt, the company has grown from a one stop shop to a global corporation. The last strength is the COVID-19's rapid response, where Pfizer's work in developing the mass production of COVID-19 vaccine. It is completely unmatched by any corporation in the medical field. And it is the fastest a vaccine has ever been approved, rolled out, and mass administered to the public. Moving on to the weaknesses. Just let me get that slide. Yep. All right. So the first weakness is a high dependency on the American market. The US actually accounts for 53% of Pfizer's revenues, according to its annual report, while China accounts for 7% of the market, Japan 8% of the market, and 35% of the market is the rest of the world. Now, a heavy dependence on the American markets may be risky given strict drug prohibition laws and changing political climate. Another weakness is the multiple lawsuits. I mean, thousands of cases have been brought up against Pfizer, many for serious injuries reportedly caused by some of its most famous drugs. It also holds the record for the highest fine ever being charged in a case involving healthcare fraud, which amounted to $2.3 billion in settlements. Now, we also have the opportunities. And the first opportunity is the COVID-19 vaccine development. Now, in April 2020, Pfizer collaborated with BioNTech to produce the vaccine in response to the pandemic. And these two companies obtained the world's first temporary authorization in the UK for the vaccine in December 2020. It was also approved for distribution in the United States by the FDA a week later than that would be January 2021. Another opportunity is the vaccine's effectivity. While hospitals in the UK have collected real-world data that suggests a single dose of the Pfizer vaccine reduces the number of the COVID-19 symptoms by 4 times. And this research, which is currently undergoing peer review, it was led by the University of Cambridge and Cambridge University Hospitals with the NHS Foundation Trust. We also have a few threats, and they start off with the decreasing revenues because Pfizer's sales fell when one of the most lucrative patents on its blockbuster medication Lyrica expired. The FDA has also given approval to 9 separate companies to produce the same generic versions of the drug. Now, when these generic versions of Lyrica hit the market, sales plunged even more than the actual predictions. So consequently, the corporation also dropped a few slots in the Fortune 500 rankings. Another threat is the allergies, because people who received the COVID-19 vaccine had severe allergic reactions, and polyethyl glycol, also known as PEG, that element is present in the vaccine, and that element has never been used in any vaccine which has been approved till date. The third threat is unprecedented demand for vaccines. While Pfizer is now faced with a moral dilemma in determining where their vaccine doses will be distributed. So executives at Pfizer are making decisions that no other pharmaceutical executive will have to make. And an important factor in this is the government policy. However, vaccine manufacturers such as Pfizer do have a certain control over which countries receive their vaccines first. Now, moving on to the Porter's 5 forces analysis. The first one will be threat of new entrants, because the threat of new entrants, in this case of Pfizer, is pretty high, especially with the expiring patents of Pfizer, which in turn allow other manufacturers to produce generic versions of the drug. And to maintain this competitive advantage, I believe Pfizer must navigate all of these obstacles and put in place a successful barrier. The other analysis is about bargaining power of suppliers, which is currently high because raw materials are procured from a variety of suppliers by medical industries. and suppliers in leading positions have the ability to reduce the profit margins of Pfizer. Moving on to the bargaining power of buyers, which is currently low as Pfizer has some patented medicines which others cannot offer till a few years. Because buyers, they're always trying to get the best deals by spending the least amount of money possible. And this can be tackled by developing new products at a rapid phase. And also the threat of substitutes, which is pretty high, because when a replacement product or service provides a value proposition that is significantly higher from the industry's current offering, it poses a significant challenge. While we speak about industry rivalry, rivalry has a negative impact on the organization's overall long-term profitability. However, Pfizer can tackle this rivalry uh, with existing competitors by building sustainable differentiations and also by collaborating with competitors to increase the market size. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the recommendations I have for Pfizer. The first one is research and development. I would recommend Pfizer to increase investments in research and development as newcomers are less likely to join a competitive industry, especially where proven players like Pfizer define the norms on a daily basis. This greatly decreases the window of opportunity for new businesses to make exceptional profits. Therefore, it discourages new entrants into the industry. And second one is efficient supply chains with multiple suppliers. I believe Pfizer needs to build efficient supply chains with multiple suppliers in order to have backups if one supplier fails to deliver. They should also start testing various materials and technologies so that if the price of one raw material rises, the corporation can simply switch to another one without facing any issues. And the last recommendation would be covering both the key elements, which are, moreover, I believe Pfizer should focus on quality rather than quantity and rather than only selling products. And most importantly, they need to focus on the customer's core need rather than the product which the customers are purchasing. I believe that's going to be about everything from my side. And now Cyrus will be presenting his company. Thank you, everybody, for
We'll
listening.
do a little discussion first before I present. A question I'll ask you is, um, Pfizer had a really positive response to COVID, and I think that's helped their brand image. Would their response to COVID help them in entering new markets?
Yes, I do believe that is a correct point because I mean they have been in the business for around 170 years, and other than that, they have developed innovative ways to deliver the vaccine, especially to those certain areas which do not have any medical expertise, such as rural places. I mean, in countries like India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, there are some towns where it's literally impossible to reach, but Pfizer has still done a pretty good job of delivering the vaccines in those certain rural areas. And I believe, yes, that is due to its strong brand image and basically whatever they've been doing for the past 170 years.
Yeah, and I'll ask a follow-up about supply chains. Um, with the materials that they're producing and how important it is, how much like effort do they need to put into their supply chains to make sure it's optimal and that there's no disruption so that in a pandemic like this, they're able to get products out when they need to be?
Well, currently their supply chain is doing pretty good. However, they have faced some difficulties with the supply chains, and those difficulties are due to many different reasons. Some of them are due to the supplier and specifically the bargaining power of the suppliers, because as I mentioned earlier, there are many sources where raw materials can be procured from, but if there is a supplier who has a higher power, then they can actually negotiate with Pfizer. And Pfizer does not need that right now. Therefore, it's important for them to develop multiple supply chains which are equally effective and efficient with multiple suppliers. So just in case anything goes wrong, they can completely switch to another supplier. And yeah, that is the need for the multiple supply chains.
Okay, and that's all for my questions. If does anyone else have any?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but firstly, I would like to thank Noor that he gave a good presentation with a brief introduction of the company and then the analysis. And yeah, I agree with Noor for the recommendation he gave to Pfizer that yes, they should focus on quality, not on the quantity. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natasha, any questions or are we good?
No.
Okay, so you can stop sharing screen and I'll go about just verbally presenting my company.
All right, just one moment.
Yep. All right, cool. So thank you, Noor, for that, by the way. I'll be doing my presentation on Nintendo Corporation just verbally. So looking at some basics regarding Nintendo, it was founded September 23rd, 1889 in Kyoto, Japan, and it's still currently headquartered in Kyoto. They operate in the interactive entertainment and gaming industry, and they produce and develop software and hardware that's related to gaming. So their mission in Nintendo is to provide products and services of the highest quality and to treat every customer with attention, consideration, and respect. And additionally, their vision is to put smiles on the faces of everyone they're able to reach through their products. And they operate using 3 core values of uniqueness, flexibility, and sincerity. And using this, they say it allows them to create value in a gaming industry that's so heavily competitive. So in order to generate some suitable recommendations for Nintendo's future operations, I have to understand the internal operations and the external environment through a SWOT analysis primarily. So the internal environment of Nintendo is really what allows it to be an industry leader. Some notable strengths of Nintendo are its extensive global distribution network. So they have facilities all across the world, from Kyoto to Melbourne, Frankfurt to Richmond. They're completely global, and it's really allowed them to increase physical sales. Even during the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020, their physical sales and products increased by 63%, and it's just due to their global outreach. So their effective geographical segmentation into these markets, it allows them to reduce the risk because they're operating as separate entities in numerous markets and allows them to just reach an entirely new client base. They're also very competitive when it comes to pricing. They're relatively cheaper than other consoles that you see, and they're doing this in order to reach a larger demographic. And it's also to help combat the rise of alternative platforms like mobile games, which are often free. And they've also gone about strategic partnerships as well. Disney is a huge partner that they've had in developing products, but at the same time, they've remained cost competitive even through these partnerships. So just looking at some weaknesses of Nintendo, a really important thing to note is that they heavily relied on leading products for the business to be financially sound. So currently 85% of their annual revenue is coming from their Nintendo Switch, which is 10 billion in revenue. So if this Nintendo Switch is to suddenly drop in popularity, there is no secondary leading product that can somewhat recoup this 10 billion in annual revenue. And with dependence, they also have an extreme dependence on developed economies and markets that they're in. Economies that they entered from the beginning, such as North America, Europe, Japan, Australia, and South Korea, they kind of have stayed in those markets over time. They don't really operate too heavily outside of those markets. And the thing is that these markets obviously become saturated with new competition that comes into a booming gaming industry. And one thing to look at during the pandemic that was a weakness for them was their supply chain responsiveness. I talked about the increase in demand for physical products, and while they did increase their sales, they weren't able to meet the surge in demand that came about during that time. So when I look at the external environment, there are threats to Nintendo. And the biggest one is the great increase in competition and saturation of markets. We're seeing firms such as Sony, Microsoft, Electronic Arts. They are completely expanding into games of all platforms, and they're a huge competitor currently to Nintendo. And because this video game industry is relatively new, but is absolutely booming, it means that there's going to be increased competition in these developed markets. As well comes the introduction of different platforms, such as mobile gaming. And this is drawing some consumers away from Nintendo because mobile games are often free and much more accessible than you would trying to get a Nintendo game. And another really significant threat to note, it's a bit of a weird one, is the rise in counterfeit and pirated products. So through technological advances, have these off-brand versions of Nintendo products and consoles been made very available, even though they are illegal. They've been made readily available online, other places you can get them for a fraction of the price of Nintendo consoles or even for free. So this has really hit hard in their sales. So now that we've done that, we can look into strategic options. So we can analyze some opportunities for Nintendo and see how they can shape the direction forward based on these opportunities. So looking at the short term, which is in the next year or so, I think it's really important for them to diversify further into the mobile gaming industry. It's an industry that's expected to reach 95.4 billion in value by 2022. Despite how young mobile gaming is, it's crazy, meaning that they are able to now develop mobile versions of popular games that they already have, or they can create entirely new games for mobile. They have an incredibly large game bank and excellent research and development, and it would really allow them to penetrate a market that's steadily growing and gain some market share. So looking at the medium-term strategy, which would be the next 3 to 5 years, they can really look at diversifying their offering base through expansions to both their catalog of games, capacity, but most importantly, branching into other aspects of gaming and entertainment in general, such as the rise in virtual and augmented reality, and through taking steps in other directions not related to gaming, such as health-conscious hardware. The rise in health-conscious consumerism, especially with gaming products, has created a demand for this field, and they can definitely accommodate that. And another thing to note during these 3 to 5 years is they can really look towards refining their supply chain and greatly improving their responsiveness so that issues like they had in the past do not happen again. The use of technological advancements and features such as data forecasting will really help them be able to revitalize their supply chains and make sure they're responsive. And finally, just looking at the long-term strategy, 5 years or more, I think the most important thing for them to do is really look into expanding into emerging markets. So they need to look beyond the highly saturated markets they're already in and towards markets that have growing levels of disposable income and a rising middle class, such as China, India, Africa, and Latin America. These markets are somewhat untapped by competition in this gaming space, and Nintendo definitely has the capital, knowledge, and capacity to help expand their operations globally and into these developing economies and further establishing their global distribution network and outreach. So that's all for me. I'm gonna now open up the board to questions that you guys may have.
Yeah. So my question is that did they take any steps to overcome their weakness of not meeting the demands of the consumers?
Yeah, they have, but Nintendo historically has not had the most responsive supply chains. So when it's come to the release of other products, they haven't been able to meet demand so heavily. But yeah, it's a weakness that's remained a weakness. And that's why I did list it as a strategic recommendation, because they've had a history of not having a super responsive supply chain. So that's something they definitely do need to work on. That's a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I went through the whole presentation that you gave, and it was really knowledgeable. And I believe that Nintendo should focus on making other products a cash cow as well, as they're currently dependent on a single product. And along with the increased competition, as this is a very dynamic industry with emerging technologies on a daily basis. I did have a question at the start. What has Nintendo done to cater this for this certain scenario? but you answered it in the presentation because they're currently focusing on AI and virtual reality and all that kind of stuff. However, I do believe that they should incorporate the STEM learning phase into their gaming consoles. The STEM is basically what Lego is currently doing. I mean, they focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and then they incorporate these four elements into their games because they're currently focusing on games as well. Other than that, everything was very clear.
Yeah, I'll touch on that. You're talking about that primary product, and while they're looking into other fields such as VR and AI and expanding, it's really preliminary. So they've been focusing on having that leading product for such a long time. And you guys all know the history of Nintendo. They've had products like the Wii, Nintendo Switch, so they only focus on that product at a time. So if one of them just crashes, well, all of their financials are ruined because of that. But yeah, it's a good point. They have excellent R&D, so implementing that STEM learning into their technology is definitely a future possibility.
All right, perfect.
Yeah. Any more questions, or are we good? No, okay, so I'm going to now pass it on to Minahil for her presentation.
Thank you, Cyrus. I would like to share my screen. Just give me a moment. So, hello everyone. The company that I've chosen for today's presentation is Etisalat. It's a telecommunication company. Let's start with the introduction. So basically, Etisalat was founded in 1976, and it has its headquarters in Abu Dhabi, which is obviously in the UAE, and it is a multinational Emirati-based telecommunication provider as well as internet providers. Moreover, currently they are operating in 15 countries across Asia, Middle East, and Africa. Moving on to the strengths. Moving on to the vision and mission of the Etisalat. Well, the vision for Etisalat is to build a world where distance do not restrict people's reach. And moving on to the mission, which is their mission is to extend people's reach. Etisalat actively develops advanced networks that enable people to learn and develop and grow. Basically, Etisalat has two major competitors in UAE. First one is Do, and the second one is Virgin Mobile. Do launched in 2006, while Virgin Mobile launched in 2017, which is just a recent launch. Moving on to the SWOT analysis of the Etisalat. So their first strength for this company is their largest network, which is that they are operating in Middle East and Africa, and Etisalat has the largest carrier of international voice traffic and is on number 12th in the world. Then we have the market share, and the market share for Etisalat is 156 billion dirhams. Dirhams is their currency, and they have international blue chip company, which means that they are well established, well known, and well capitalized. They are the leading company in their sector of telecommunication. And then we have the third strength, which is broadband tariff. Etisalat is reducing their broadband tariff prices to enable consumers to get to enable them to get new customers. And then moving on to the weaknesses. So the weaknesses for Etisalat is their poor quality due to widespread network, as it's a large network, and it has operations in many countries. So this may lead to quality of service poor quality of service, as it will have to maintain all these together. Then the second thing is that they have high calling charges, because Etisalat is one company that is the oldest one in the telecommunication sector in UAE. So customers may think twice to buy this network because of the high calling rates. Moving on to their opportunity. So, well, UAE has a good GDP. The company has the country has strong economic foundation, which means that the company has strong economic fundamentals that are sustained by the high GDP per capita of the country. So they are like people who can afford high calling rates, because UAE is known as a rich country, but still it's a weakness for the company that they have high calling charges. Moving on to the second opportunity. Second opportunity is their mobile number portability, which is also known as MNP, which enables mobile subscribers to keep their mobile telephone numbers when changing from one mobile network to the another one. So the implementation of the MNP service will allow unsatisfied subscribers using competitors' network to transfer to Etisalat network more easily. So that's one opportunity. And the threat, we have threat for Etisalat is just one, which is the competition from Do, as they are just two companies which are there for the telecommunication service providers. So the main threat for Etisalat is Do. Moving on to the Porter's 5 forces. The first force is threat of entry. The threat of entry here is high because UAE government may allow the entry of new players in the telecommunication industry, since Etisalat is dominating the sector. So that's one threat. Then we have threat of substitute, which is low, since the image created by Etisalat through the provision of quality services led to the development of customer loyalty. So there's less chance of people switching to some other network provider. Then the bargaining power of buyer is low due to the competition. There's few competitors in UAE market, so the bargaining power is low for the buyer. Then we have bargaining power of the supplier, which is again low, since there are just two players in the market, which gives Etisalat huge bargaining power over their suppliers. Then we have rivalry, since they are just two players in the telecommunication industry, Etisalat and Do. The competition will be tough because the companies are attempting to retain their clients, and also attempting to draw customers from the other. So yeah, rivalry will be tough. Moving on to the sustainable goals, the corporate social responsibility for Etisalat. So in 2012, Etisalat's sustainability and social responsibility strategy evolved as it undertook several commitments to ensure better coordination across the global operations, including to support United Nations Global Compact. And in 2012, the Etisalat Group has also supported more than 40 development and humanitarian charity projects across its footprints. Moreover, Etisalat has been very active in Egypt through many initiatives such as Origin. Well, it is a project to meet the challenges of water security. Then Etisalat has been very active in African countries as well, such as Togo, and it has been contributing in education and health sector by supporting scholarship for girls and building classrooms, providing laptops and computers. So yeah, and then we have it has been aiding to Afghanistan projects for charity, and which includes distribution of around 3,000 food packages containing basic food items to needy families, and especially this month of Ramadan. So yeah, and in addition to healthcare and educational initiatives, Etisalat has made great efforts to reduce its environmental footprints and committed to go green strategy by cutting down their greenhouse gas emissions in UAE. Then moving on to the recommendations. So the first recommendation for Etisalat is the horizontal integration. Horizontal integration is that they should try to acquire their major competitor, because this would boost their bargaining power and also minimize the competition. Then the second recommendation is that Etisalat would would be able to cut costs if they outsource certain functions, such as customer support, and it would help them make more profits. Then the third recommendation is the differentiation strategies. So the most important aspect of differentiation strategy is that Etisalat should concentrate on innovation and efficiency rather than charging high rates that could drive away the customers. So yeah, that's all from my side. Any questions?
Yeah, that was first of all, it was a really good presentation.
Thank
Good
you.
insight on everything. The first question I'll ask is, before Etisalat can expand internationally even further, you mentioned that they have a poor quality of their network. Is that something you think they should work on before they seriously consider that?
Yeah, definitely they should consider that, because it's a large network and they are operating in different countries, so they should take steps to improve themselves and keep up their brand name.
Mm-hmm. And I'll ask a follow-up. Do you think it would be easy for Etisalat to enter North American markets? Because sometimes Middle Eastern brands aren't received the most positively. Do you think it makes even sense for them to go into North American markets or expand more so in Asia and Africa?
Yeah, I think they should expand in Asia, not in North America, because I think there are already many competitors in there are many competitors in North America, so I don't think so. Etisalat should move and expand to North America. They should stay and expand in Asia and Middle East.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I also have a question regarding to the strategies that Etisalat is using currently. You mentioned that they're operating in UAE, where they literally have non-existent competition, because it's just three network providers, and one of them just entered the industry in 2017. And due to that, Etisalat is charging high prices for their calling rates. Do you think in the long term, is this a good strategy or policy which is being implemented by Etisalat, or will this actually drive the customers away in the long term?
Well, I think they should try to, like I recommended them, that they should try to lower their prices, because do the competitor of Etisalat, they're providing less calling charges and other rates and other internet bundles in a less price than Etisalat. So yeah, I would recommend Etisalat to lower their prices if they want to retain their customers.
All right, completely understood. Thank you for your part.
Thank you. So I think that's all. And now I would like to call Natasha for the further explanation on her topic.
Thank you, Minahal. I'll be talking about the company Alphabet, which is one of the leading multinational companies based in US, and it was founded in 2015. It's the parent company of Google. The company aims to allow businesses to reach high rank through its medium, along with the objective of making the world more accessible to information within seconds. I'll be identifying the internal and external factors that are affecting the operational activities of Alphabet, and for that I have conducted SWOT analysis and pest analysis of the company. Let's look at the strengths of the company. Uh, Digital advertising is the main source of Alphabet's revenue through Google advertising. In 2022, advertising generated 80% of the total company's revenue. Other than this, web search, Google's search is the company's search engine that people use to find information online. It's the most widely used search engine in the world, with 86.6% desktop market share and 95.3% share of the mobile segment as of February 2021. Other than this, Google has some weaknesses. Alphabet entered the smartphone industry with the Pixel phones. However, its position in this industry is very weak because of the relatively higher popularity of the other brands like Samsung and Apple. Other than this, the privacy issues are large. Growing privacy concerns has led to higher legal security and legal actions against the company. EU has taken the strict actions and applied fines as well as strict laws to avoid misuse of the user data by Google and other companies like Facebook. Other than this, the company has few opportunities. For example, the company should continue to invest in cloud businesses, as the cloud businesses are the future of IT industry. While innovation is the core focus of Alphabet, it must try to strengthen its position in the cloud industry. The threats are from obviously from the competition in the IT industry, which has grown over the recent years. Alphabet has several competitors, including Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, and Yahoo. This leads to higher pressure, higher pressure related to innovation and expenditure on the both research and development as well as marketing and sales. And again, the privacy concerns have made the pressure on the on that pressure on the brand in this industry to grow. EU applied strict measures to prevent the large businesses information from misusing. Other than this, I think this is the only troubling challenges faced by the company. For its external analysis, I have conducted pestle analysis. I'll go through political factors that are influencing Alphabet. Alphabet has expanded its operation in more than one nation because of the political stability in the countries. Also, during the times of Trump's rule, the residing state wasn't particularly on good terms with China, in which it affected the annual revenue of Google for a short span of time, but led to major censorship issues that has affected the long-term aims of the company. The censorship issues arose in China, as it is clearly stated that Google holds information about their users, and this was considered as a political threat by China, and which led to the ban of the use. Um, Other than this, I think I'll be talking about economic issues. Alphabet has accumulated a huge amount of cash, which makes it very open and sensitive to inflation. A certain drop in the value of currency could reduce the company's value. The large amount of companies' money Google keeps oversee, which makes it more sensitive to exchange rate. The currency and the currency market. For example, if the dollar is strong, Google could lose a lot of money if it's forced to bring a lot of cash back into the United States. The company could also lose money if the dollar is weak because it could force to exchange a stronger currency for a weak dollar. Talking about the social factors, Google has not been able to translate its success in traditional search to other segments of the market, including vital shopping search. For example, Amazon is now the top search tool for online shoppers. Forecaster research reported around 30% of on online shoppers start their search at Amazon. That makes it harder for Google to cash in on such transactions. Other than this, there's a decline of in the use of traditional laptops and desktops nowadays. That means people are now using more mobile phones for their day-to-day activities, and Google is in the particular field plays an active role in this, which means that individuals are more accessible to the search engines for the slightest of their queries. This helped Alphabet to generate its annual income with a wide range of audience. Then technological factors is Alphabet, despite its investments in research and development, faces competitions from other cell phone companies like Apple and Samsung. For example, Apple has implemented its influence on almost every other individual, and Apple has its own search engine, which leaves Google or Alphabet at a potential disadvantage in particular regard. Apart from this, many firms are involved in the same practices, such as Google. For example, Microsoft being an effective search engine as Google, that leaves Alphabet through at high risk of getting replaced in this industry. Talking about legal factors, copyright laws are the companies are countries are greatly there are new laws are being placed in restricting uploading of copyrighted information on Google platforms or on YouTube. This may affect the boldness of the content available on these platforms and thereby decrease traffic. This will further reduce the availability of Google to run advertisements and reduce the revenue overall. Other than this, recent laws regarding data privacy has been working against Google's mode of operations. As stated before, the company is highly dependent on running targeted ads on its platforms for its revenue, and for this purpose, collecting private data of users is required. As countries across the world are implementing laws and placing restrictions on the collection of private data, Google is having a hard time running its target ads. Lastly, environmental issues. Google business model is heavily dependent on the data centers and other internet infrastructures that use large amount of electricity. Efforts to control global warming by encouraging the use of green energy sources by producing electricity could increase the Alphabet's operation cost. But at some point, Google might not be able to offer free services as it has in the past. However, the company has invested a huge sum of capital in order to save energy sources in order to reduce the potential environmental hazards in the long term. For recommendation, I would recommend that Alphabet should look for new niches in the cell phone industry and get in the game before the leading firms such as Samsung or Apple push the company out of business. And this can only be done if the company invests high sum of capital. Furthermore, Google is a renowned and firm that plays an active role in the lives of many individuals in every aspect. And with the consideration of this, Alphabet should focus on opportunities that I have stated before. In SWOT analysis, the opportunities would bring many fruitful benefits for the company for short term as well as for to achieve their long-term goals. That's it. Any question?
Thank you, Natasha. It was a good presentation. No, I don't have a question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very thorough. So I think you kind of answered the questions that I had. I think we can go about wrapping up the discussion. That's cool. So Nur, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I just have a small question, and that is regarding its competitor, which is Amazon. As you mentioned, that more people are turning to Amazon for products, even for store recommendations, rather than Google, because Amazon it has sellers which have basically led users to switch to Amazon instead of Google. So, would you? I mean, I'd like to hear your view on what Alphabet is doing to, swerve all those customers which are going to Amazon instead of Google.
Sorry, can you repeat your question? I don't get it.
My question is about its competitor, which is Amazon, as you mentioned, that currently people are switching over to Amazon's when it comes to asking for recommendations or, I mean, even asking for product reviews. So, what is Alphabet doing to switch those customers back to them, back to basically Google instead of Amazon?
As I mentioned before, people are using Amazon for its for shopping, and I believe that Alphabet should take some steps and start introducing new strategies to bring those customers back.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So then I'll go about wrapping this up. This was our group discussion. We are group B33. Hope you enjoyed. You can go about ending the recording now.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Guys, thank you.